Lead us to a place morning, Joel.
Good morning, y'all. Is Mercury in retrograde? Or whatever tech tricksters we have going on? Anyways, good morning. Did you know that we are all flowers? We come in a variety of colors, shapes, and sizes. Some of us grow in bunches, some of us grow alone. Some of us are cupped inward, and some of us spread ourselves out wide. Some of us are old and dried and tougher than we appear. Some of us are just still buds. Some of us are low to the ground, and some of us stretch towards the sun. Let's stretch towards the sun for a minute. Yeah! Get some energy flowing. Stretch towards the sun. Some of us feel like weeds, sometimes. Some of us carry seeds, sometimes. Some of us are prickly, sometimes. Some of us smell, sometimes. But all of us are beautiful. What a bouquet of people we are. Come, let us worship together.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Berkeley. I'm Diana Claghorn, and I will be your worship associate today. I can do this. This is a welcoming congregation, and we are always working on how to better welcome and care for one another. If this is your first time here, we're glad you've come. And whoever you are, we welcome you in the fullness of who you are. As we begin, we want to acknowledge that this church occupies land in Huichin, the unceded territory of the Chochenyo-speaking Ohlone people. We understand that we continue to benefit from the seizure and occupation of this land. we acknowledge and embrace our responsibility to take restorative action. We affirm that this is a deeply felt and commit our congregation to be in right relations with Indigenous communities, align in solidarity, support Indigenous projects, and care properly for the land. Let us kindle our chalice flame with these words by Amy Zucker Morgenstein. Within the heart of the flower, the fountain of beauty. Within the heart of the community, a fire that warms and dances. Within the heart of each of us, a spark of the spirit of life. And now, for the 4 candles of resilience. We also pause to remind ourselves of some of the fountains of resilience. With Reverend Michelle, we light a candle of courage, a candle of acts of service, a candle of fellowship, and a candle of hope. May we find and cultivate these foundations of resilience in ourselves and one another. Now, please join us in singing our opening song, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place, number 1008. The words will be on screen. In the teal hymnal, yes.
If the words don't show up on the screen, you'll be able to catch on to at least some of them pretty easily.
Now, please join me in saying our covenant. Love guides this church. The quest for truth and justice is its common purpose. To give thanks, listen deeply, speak with care, honor our differences, and seek and grant forgiveness. These things we covenant with one another.
There was once a woman who lived on a faraway island among jungles, lagoons, volcanoes, and a great seashore. The woman wished very much to have a child, so she visited Barleycorn and Associates, a prominent magical and medicinal clinic, and was given the opportunity to raise a flower child. These small children were grown inside flowers, and the woman was sent home with a seedling. She potted her flower and kept it healthy and nourished. One day, when she leaned in to kiss the blossom, it opened to reveal a tiny girl inside. The woman was overjoyed and named her new daughter May. She set up a clever home for her tiny daughter with a seashell bed, a thimble chair, and a table and a boat made from banana leaves and the whiskers of a tiger. Every night, the woman would sing to May, and the two would make up rhymes together. May grew up to be a great lover of music. She invented stringed instruments from stems and grasses and percussion from seed pods and sand. She carved holes in the twigs to make flutes and brushed dewdrops along the rim of polished sea glass. May imagined it sounded like the wings of tiny fairies. May's music soon attracted attention. Animals and people alike would stop outside her home to hear her play. One day, May's mother interrupted her playing with a suggestion. How would you like a wider audience for your music? There's only so much our small town can offer. A bigger place would give you the chance to be a star. May considered the idea. True, her town was lovely, but she was always curious what else was out there, and a chance to develop her music in an exciting new town sounded promising. May was sad to leave, but she packed her instruments in her seashell bed and set off in the direction of the next biggest town. Before she left, her mother hugged her tight and said, "Remember, May, always ask questions. You don't have to trust someone until they've earned it." After traveling for some time, May stopped by a pond to make camp. Just as she was closing her eyes, she heard a voice behind her. "Well, aren't you a sight, missy?" hissed a creaky voice. "Who's there?" asked May. "Well, hello, dearie." A large toad slunk out from the shadows. "I do believe you're on my property." She brandished a stick with neon algae that dripped over May as the toad moved closer. "Oh, I'm sorry. I'll pack up right away," May said, jumping out of the shell. The slimy creature reached into the shell and caressed her flute. "No need, my pet. You can be Lady Toad's guest." And she trod off with May's belongings in hand. May had no choice but to follow. In Lady Toad's residence, it was clear something was not right. She fussed and fawned over May, touching her hair, poking her ribs. "Just what are you doing out alone on a night like this?" coaxed Lady Toad. "I'm off to pursue my dream of being a musician," May said proudly. "It's as if you fell right into my lap," Lady Toad said triumphantly. "Our family has a traveling band. How would you like a spot on our show? I'll make you a flashy costume and you can perform in the late show every night. Only the finest creatures come out at that hour. We'll be rich." May doubted that the finest folks came out in the wee hours. She desperately wanted to leave, but Lady Toad had her shell and all her instruments. May was sick to her stomach. What had she stumbled into? "Allow me to show you your, quarters," offered Lady Toad, gesturing to a far-off lily pad. Lady Toad hopped her way over to the middle of the pond and dumped May onto the slippery pad. She brushed all nearby leaves off and stepping stones aside and disappeared into the dark, leaving May stranded. May was frightened. She couldn't swim and was too small to reach anything nearby to escape. Trying to comfort herself, she put her hands in her pockets and discovered a bit of sea glass. May dipped a finger into the murky pond water, then slid it along the glass and began to play a mournful song. Below her, a fish stirred by May's music popped its head out of the water. "What a sad tune," the fish noted. "Is something the matter?" May explained her predicament. "I'm supposed to be headed to a big city to be a musician, but Lady Toad put me here," she said, gesturing to the lily pad. "I'm stuck with nowhere to go." "I'm very sorry to hear of your troubles. I can't do much, but I can cut you loose," said the fish. It nibbled the stem of the lily pad until it cut loose and May began to float. "My friends the butterflies will help you. Just look up," called the fish. "They'll guide you to dry land." "Thank you," said May, grabbing a stick as a paddle. May propelled the boat along the water as it opened to a stream. When the night sky gave way to dawn, she saw a tangle of lovely butterflies on the horizon. She followed them just as the fish had suggested, and the stream turned to a marsh and then a field. May stepped off the lily pad onto dry land. Parrot calls filled the sky above, and they kept May awake as she strode through the field. She was very tired, but she flicked the grass in rhythm with the birds' voices and wrote a new song to keep her company as she journeyed. Soon May arrived at a small door in the field. She was exhausted, and without a single belonging, she gave the door a rapid pound, eager to rouse the owner. An eccentric old mouse answered the door. "Come in from the cold, young thing," the mouse invited. The mouse was welcoming and tended to May, keeping her warm and fed. May offered to return the favor by singing. "You're a musician?" inquired the mouse. "Well, I'm working on it. I was on my way to the next biggest town to see if I have what it takes," May explained. May sang a song that she'd written for the mouse, accompanying herself on the sea glass. It was marvelous, and the mouse applauded generously. "I know just who to introduce you to," declared the mouse. "My Lord Neighbor Mole. He knows all the top talent in music." And without that, the mouse ran next door to Lord Mole's. She was gone for quite some time, and when she returned, she looked very proud of herself. "It's all set, pet. Lord Mole is anxious to meet you." May barely had a moment to protest, for the mouse took May by the hand and led her down the tunnel to her neighbor. He'll keep you in fancy clothes, pay for your music career, and introduce you to all the important critters. I've already signed a contract for you, the mouse prattled. Along the way, they passed a bird, collapsed in a heap. Don't mind the riffraff, the mouse gestured to the feathered mess. Once you're a famous singer, all your past will be cleared. Welcome, beckoned Lord Mole when they arrived at his underground office. The walls were littered with awards, album covers, and photos featuring the smiling faces of his friends and clients. Everything looked a little too good to be true. Step over here, let me take a look at you, Lord Mole coaxed, circling May. He talked endlessly about lords and ladies, barons and baronesses, and all manner of fancy folk. May remembered what her mother said. She didn't trust Lord Mole one bit. We'll start with a makeover. I'll order you a new wardrobe made exclusively of dragonfly wings to show off yourself. Lord Mole began dictating a list to the mouse. With shoes to make you taller, of course. We'll give you a tragic backstory, too. What was it you said? You were born in a burned-out hazelnut shell? No. I'm from a beautiful flower. May tried to interrupt. I'll have Spotted Newt write you some new lyrics. He's tapped into all the trends, Lord Mole continued. But I write my own music, May said. Lord Mole laughed loudly. Success in this business is not about lyrics. It's about the whole package. And I know just how to rap you. Trust me. May was beginning to see the full context of Lord Mole's plan, and none of it included her music. He'd never even heard her sing. May was fed up, so she faked a yawn and excused herself back to the mouse house. She had to figure out a way out of this. On the way, May stopped beside the overcome bird, a beautiful parrot. Are you all right, she asked as she knelt beside the poor creature. I could use a hand. I caught something in my wing on my way out of town, the parrot explained. I think I heard you before singing. I was so inspired, said May. Oh, so that was you on the accompaniment, the parrot smiled. May smiled back, then examined the wounded bird. There's a thorn in your wing, she explained. There's a thorn in my side as well. I'll be glad to help you with yours if you help me with mine. But I don't see anything on you, said the parrot. Oh, it's not a real one, May laughed, rolling the parrot on his side, then gently loosening the offending thorn. You see, I set off to find the next great place to pursue my music, but everyone I've met so far wants to change me in a way that suits them. The latest is a mouse who signed me into a contract with Lord Mole, but something about him doesn't sit right with me. That's my thorn. Sounds like you have good instincts. That contract sounds fishy, especially since you didn't even sing. I think I know a way to get you out of it. You've helped me with my thorn. Now it's my turn to help you, said the parrot. On the morning of May's makeover, all the critters Lord Mole had hired arrived with him at the mouse's house. Just as Lord Mole was about to leave, May said, Lord Mole, you've hired this big team for me, and don't you want to hear me sing? Lord Mole paused at the door to show everyone how great I'm going to be and how I'm going to make them all so much money. Oh, of course. Lord Mole glowed at the sound of riches. So May reached for a set of pots to use as drums, plucked a comb from the table to play across her lips, and began playing and singing the most awful song anyone had ever heard. Who knows how to sing really awful? Can anybody sing really awful? What's the worst you've ever heard? Who can do their best? Anything else? All right. May screeched, hamming it up. The creatures in the burrow covered their ears, some covered their eyes, and those that didn't exchanged wide looks. When the song was over, May dropped the comb, clattered the pots to the floor, and strode out of the burrow, head held high. Lord Mole took after May. You'll never be a star with shenanigans like that. Watch me, said May. Lord Mole shook his fist at her in anger, but just at that moment, the freshly healed parrot swooped from the sky and picked May up and flew her away. Together they flew a day's journey, and the parrot landed in the kingdom of flowers at the doorstep of a place called the Wings of Music Residency Center. Ta-da! Announced the parrot. This is where your heart desires. Am I right? Oh my, it's wonderful, May said. The Institute was like a grand park with small cottages for studios, instrument making, and performing. Fairies, critters, and creatures of all kinds mingled through the mounds, whistling, singing, and tapping out rhythms, even some just May size. It's a place where you'll always be the author of your own song, explained the parrot. No one to push me into the contract or performances or costumes, cheered May. She gave the parrot a tremendous hug and sent him on his way. Thank you, thank you. May waved as he flew off. May remained at the residency for a long time, exploring her craft, inventing instruments, and making lifelong friends. Many of her friends had similar stories about having been mistreated and misdirected in their pursuits as artists. When May left the residency, she became a prominent musical producer, helping magical creatures foster their gifts and preserve the integrity of their work. In later life, she returned as a lawyer, specializing in contracts and advocacy. She fought tirelessly for even the smallest creature, ensuring that they too could follow their hearts. That was a long one. Thanks for hanging with me. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you have children who need to go to RE, then I can walk you there now. So you're free to follow me.
Let's take a little bit of time now to find a quiet center within ourselves. Settle into your seat or wherever you are. Feel the earth beneath you. Feel it there. If you want, just kind of stretch just a little bit, stretching your spine up a little bit, letting your head roll around. We got some big oxygen-hungry heads that need to be balanced properly to keep ourselves in balance. I invite you to take a nice deep breath, and when you're ready, gently release it. Releasing some of the burdens and worries that you are carrying here this morning. This is the time we make in our service, both to think about each other, but also to remember ourselves, what we need, what our bodies need, the community around us we need. So for our silence this morning, before our reading, I invite you to sit in silence and just hold yourself in that embrace. Let us join now in a time of silence. A reading by Linda Underwood. All this talk of saving souls. Souls weren't meant to save, like dressy clothes that seem to give out at the seams. Souls, instead, are made for wear. They come with lifetime guarantees. Don't save your soul. Pour it out like rain on cracked, parched earth. Give your soul away or pass it like a candle flame. Sing it out or laugh it up the wind. Souls were meant for hearing, meant for breaking hearts, for puzzling dreams, for remembering the spring flowers, for forgetting hurts. Those ones who talk of saving souls, they have the look of bullies who blow out the candles before you get to sing happy birthday and want the world to be placed in alphabetical order. You know the type. I will spend my soul playing it out like a sticky string into the world so that I can catch every last thing that I touch. Amen.
What is a flower? Per the Oxford Dictionary, a flower is a seed-bearing part of the plant, consisting of its reproductive organs, the stamen and the carpels, that are typically surrounded by a brightly colored corolla or petals, and the green calyx, the sepals. I'm not a scientist. So, my question, though, is what is our fascination as human beings with flowers? This behavior seems so odd. We take the reproductive organs of a plant, remove them, and doom them to die in a vase on our table before they get to the chance to do what they were meant to do. The flower is that organ of the plant. It creates a temporary means to draw pollinators in, to move the pollen around from flower to flower, and then propagate their species. But once it's pollinated, the seed can be formed, and that beauty fades. To me, the flower is a symbol of a few things. It's a symbol of fertility, a symbol of impermanence, and a symbol of lasting memory of a fading beauty. We're entranced by this fading beauty, so much so that we've taken the seeds of the most beautiful flowers and we harness them. We harness what we perceive to be the most beautiful and manipulate them so that something even more beautiful can come. There's a sense of control by taking the flowers as your own. But there's also an impermanence to it. We know by picking that flower, we will only have it for a short period of time. It dresses our dining tables for a night. It adds beauty to our altars. It graces our vases. But like all things, it fades. They are a good reminder that all material things will fade. But something to remember is the beauty that they impart lasts in our hearts and our imaginations far longer.
Diana, I always love the thought to us. Thank you so much for sharing them with us. All right, got a few things to ask you about. We've got breath meditation, sitting meditation, prayer, chanting, contemplating koans, reading sacred texts, or even lectio divina, to use some fancy words, because Latin always sounds fancier, right? So what do these things all have in common? They're all spiritual practices. Now, spiritual practices are a good thing, right? We should all be doing them, right? Okay, I said should, and you've possibly heard me go on about not shoulding all over ourselves and each other. And this is a particular should I've had quite a relationship with for much of my life, the thought that one should have a spiritual practice. As a good Baptist girl, I was supposed to be praying and reading the Bible every day, right? Okay, that ended up being a bit more hit and miss for me, although I did make an attempt one year to read the entire Bible in a year. I don't know if I made it through January. Then, when I moved away from the more narrow form of Christianity that I had grown up with, I started thinking more widely about spiritual practices, and somehow I settled on the notion that the spiritual practice was sitting breath meditation, Zen Buddhism style. So in this conclusion that I made, doing everything else was inferior, so if I wanted to truly be doing a spiritual practice, it had to be this one. Now, this conclusion of mine caused some years of grief for me, so please don't go concluding that, because I'm not saying it like it's a fact. It's a story. I'm just telling you a story here. But you know, I got fixed on that being true, and I tried sitting meditation in many contexts for many years. On my own, then one year with a neighbor where we had each concluded it was the thing we needed to be doing, and so we should be doing it. There's the should again. So what we did, we lived right next door to each other, and we each had a set time every morning that we would get up and meditate together, so we made sure each other did it. Then I tried a Zen group for a year and tried it there. I tried counting, I tried mantras, I tried all sorts of different ways to focus or let go for a successful sitting meditation. Now, sitting breath meditation is a fabulous spiritual practice, and there are a lot of folks here at UUCB that practice it regularly, whether on their own or in a group. We even have several groups that meet here at the church. But after all those years of trying to admit that and only that, I finally had to admit to myself it wasn't for me. I just didn't feel fulfilled and had to force myself to sit down and do it with only varying degrees of success. So then I felt guilty because I had somehow failed at this test of being a good human being because the spiritual practice didn't work for me. Now, I hope you haven't had to go through an ordeal like this, but if you have or if you're there now, let me share with you what I finally concluded. There is no best or no ultimate spiritual practice. And none of us is a failure of any sort just because a particular spiritual practice doesn't do it for us. Instead, there are many, many amazing spiritual practices out there with so much fabulous juiciness. So many that we can try out to find what nourishes us. Now, spiritual practices are something I think is super important to be talking about in Unitarian Universalist communities. And there's something that I think we don't talk about as much as we should. And I do say that should intentionally. One of my hopes for each of us is that we can find spiritual practices that are meaningful and nourishing and be able to engage in them regularly. Okay, so you're saying, okay, I got some questions, Michelle. You just said a couple of words here I want defined. Of course I did. First, what does spiritual mean, and what is a spiritual practice? Now, there are many books and sermons written on the definition of spiritual, and probably in any room filled with Unitarian Universalists, you'll have at least as many answers to that question as there are you use in the room, possibly twice as many. But here, let me give you a short version of my answer. To me, the word spiritual means connecting with that which is beyond ourselves and outside of ourselves, and the wisdom and insight and grounding that we get from those connections and sources. Connecting with that which is beyond and outside of ourselves, and the wisdom and insight and grounding that we get from those sources. And so a spiritual practice is an activity that we engage in to help us connect with that wisdom and insight. Now, I know it's a very you sounding answer, right? But I also like stating it broadly and inclusively enough to encompass the many beliefs and meanings that are here under this great you umbrella of ours. Now, one of the exciting things about Unitarian Universalism is that we look for wisdom and truth all over the place, in religious traditions and practices throughout the world, as well as in the world herself, and within each one of us human beings as well, so many places. So while prayer and reading the Bible and breath meditation are fabulous spiritual practices, there are so many more too. Walking a labyrinth, singing, chanting, forest bathing, divination practices with tarot cards or runes, yoga, tai chi, mindful eating, journaling, rituals that go with cycles of time. And then there's the philosophy that doing everyday things with intention and meaning is itself a spiritual practice. Like making bread or greeting the day with intention. Kneading dough, to me, is such a spiritual practice. And there are so many others, activities we engage in to help us connect with the wisdom and insight from sources outside and beyond ourselves. So this church year, I'm planning that we'll be talking about spiritual practices a good deal, because like I said, my hope is that each of us will find something that nourishes us, nourishes our spirits, and be able to do it. So I hope that you'll decide to try some out, find something that works for you. Hopefully try out something new just to experiment. So to help you with this, I'm planning that we'll have a monthly or monthly-ish, right, Heaven, something like this? You at home spiritual practice box to share some ideas and materials for a variety of spiritual practices with you. So look for that starting in September. You at home. By the way, I made that up. I didn't get that from anywhere else. So what I'd like to talk to you about for the rest of my time today is a spiritual practice that I am guessing you have never heard of before. I bet you can guess what it has to do with, right? Flowers. So I'd like to tell you about a practice for helping us listen with our bodies to the wisdom that flowers and plants have. Because we're not always listening with our ears. Sometimes it's our bodies, totally disconnected from this heavy brain on top of our heads. Our bodies that can listen. So some of you may know I've been studying herbalism for the past couple of years. And while I'm not going to talk about medical herbalism today, which is its own specific thing, it was through these studies that I first encountered flower essences. Simply put, flower essences are the captures of the energetic qualities of flowers. The captures of the energetic qualities of flowers. They're not chemical or biological formulations, rather just the energies of flowers in spring water, usually combined with something to help them be shelf stable. You see, plants and the energies and influences of plants have been known to humans for just as long as there have been humans of any sort on this planet. And today's wisdom about what plants can do is the accumulation of millennia of experiences. Okay, there's some setbacks in there, some silly church folks who distrusted anything outside of their definition of faith, who destroyed gads of material and wisdom and the record of it. In fact, what might be called the practice of medicine was highly connected with the natural world until fairly recently. And you know what? It still is in many parts of the world. But to talk about flower essences, I need to tell you about a physician from Wales in the early 20th century named Dr. Edward Batch. Anybody in here heard of him? Ooh, I've got 4 hands, yay. Okay. But now will have all heard of him. He was a pathologist, bacteriologist, and later a homeopath, and he formulated the current manifestation of flower essences. But he started out as a rather conventional physician. He treated patients, and actually, he is the one who pioneered the idea of introducing a bit of an inert virus to a person in order for them to develop immunity to it. And some of this is probably sounding familiar because we've all developed expertise in the prevention of diseases and vaccinations in the past couple years. But anyways, he pioneered that idea that many modern vaccinations are based on. But he didn't like the fact that he was treating disease with more disease, or as he called it, dis-ease with dis-ease. So he turned to homeopathic principles instead. But again, he wasn't satisfied, and he was the kind of person that when something wasn't quite right with him, he kept investigating and thinking and being creative until he broke through to something that was. So 2 things ultimately led him to a new philosophy that led him to the flowers. First, he believed that one's mental state had a direct effect on one's physical health, and that imbalances in our mental and emotional states lead to imbalances in our bodies. So listen to that again. One's mental state has a direct effect on one's physical health, and that imbalances in our mental or emotional, or I'd add spiritual states, lead to imbalances in our bodies. In other words, his formulation of the mind-body-spirit connection. And then there was the dinner party. Now, Dr. Batch was not much of a party person, and he got pretty bored at this particular party. I'm wondering if any of y'all have done this. He just sat back and started watching and analyzing all the other guests there. And as he thought about each one of them, he started thinking about how they each had a distinct personality and started naming those personality types. Then he started experimenting. During his studies and practice in homeopathy, one early morning he was taking a walk, and he got to looking at the dewdrops hanging from the flowers. And he said, wow, that might just be concentrated flour there. So he started collecting those little dewdrops and then giving those to people and taking them himself to see how they changed. Now, okay, that would be a lot of work to go around and collect the dewdrops, so thankfully he came up with a more efficient technique for that. But he was really attuned to his feelings and senses and ended up finding many different effects for the flowers. What he ultimately cataloged through trial and practice and experience were 38 different remedies, as he called them, 38 different flower energies that have distinct effects on our moods and energies. Energetic captures of the flowers that really have effects on our mental and emotional states and really our spiritual states, which is why I call these spiritual practices. Okay, I've got some skeptics in here, right? I was there too. So when I first heard about these, I quickly decided it was, quote, hippy-dipping nonsense. The next few times I heard folks go on and on starry-eyed about them, I continued to think hippy-dippy nonsense, or at least placebo effect, I'll give you that. But then I realized something. For the past few years before that, I had been using what's called rescue remedy. Anybody heard of that? Okay, more hands, that was at least a dozen. I was using it both for myself and my cats. I thought it was herbalism. It's an herbal formulation that's good for relieving anxiety from acute stress. I had felt it to be effective for me, And I had experienced what it did for my cats when I put a few drops in their water bowl. And my sister and my sister-in-law, my best friend, all did this too. When their animals were anxious, they'd pop a couple drops in the water bowl, and the animals would calm down. But get this, it isn't an herbal treatment. It's a combination of 5 flower essences. That's it. Nothing chemical, nothing biological, just the energies of flowers. Now, maybe I could believe in the placebo effect for myself, but not the animals. These things actually work. Okay, do I have you curious at all? Maybe? Okay, maybe's good enough. We'll go with that. Because one of the things I hope that we use are doing is trying out different spiritual practices, giving them a try and seeing if they'll do anything for us. It's a way of expanding our awareness and expanding our horizons. So I'd like you to, even if you're just at a little bit of maybe, I'd like to invite you to give this one a try. It won't hurt you because, like I said, it's nothing chemical. It won't hurt you any more than practicing mindfulness will hurt you. So I've got 4 different flower essences prepared, a bunch of little bottles of them. You might have spotted the table when you came in. And I'd like to invite you to take one of those bottles home. I've got 4 different ones, and I've got them labeled for the kind of energetics and mood and emotions that each one works on. And then instructions, there's a half sheet with it that talks about that one, as well as suggestions for using it. Don, can you hold that up? Or Kathleen? There we go, little bitty bottle like that. Please just grab one. I don't have enough to give multiples to everybody right now, but if you like it, I can definitely make more. So they're in the atrium after the service. Now, it's not quite the traditional preservation. Usually they're preserved with brandy, but I couldn't right at this moment sit right with the idea of distributing a bunch of alcohol on Sunday morning. So instead, these are preserved with plant glycerin, but I'm not entirely thrilled with that because it mixed weird when I was diluting it. Anyways, they're plant glycerin right now. They'll taste a little sweet, but the flower energies are still there. So one of the ways I think about choosing essences is asking what I might like to work on because they each have established energetic influences. I can also help with a way of asking your body to say what it needs. But right now, take a look at it and say, okay, which of these energies might I like to work with? And now, it's not a magic wand. Boy, do I wish it were, right? It's more like listening to a particular piece of music and the mood and energy that it inspires in you after you've listened to it a number of times. That's more of what I equate it with. So what you've got today, what I've got available are 4 flowers, 2 from Dr. Batch's Britain set, and 2 from an American group. Now, it's not just Dr. Batch's idea of flower essences either. It's expanded a lot. His set is comprised entirely of flowers that could be found around his home in Wales. And this is one thing I'm disappointed with for a lot of the practitioners, is how they insist it is the set of remedies and complete and nothing else is needed. And I'm like, really, the answer to all of this was exclusively located in Wales? Because I find it pretty myopic. Many geographies and areas have their own wisdom. So I like to include essences from at least American geography as well. The few other good sets I like, one from including flowers from from throughout the United States, another one Alaskan essences, and another one that focuses on the flowers of the deserts in the Southwest. So I hope to mix these in with what I can share with y'all this year. So curious at all? Okay, excellent. We got some nods. You know, spiritual practices are just great to try. So please stop by, pick up an essence and the explanation to try out. Let us reach out to the wisdom and insight around us in the world, whether it comes from each other, from the natural world, from flowers, wherever, however we may come by it. May it be so.
At this point in our service, we invite you to make an offering. With our offering, each of us has the opportunity to recommit to making UUCB a strong and vibrant community. For now, we're conducting our offering in the sanctuary without passing the plate. Instead, you can either give electronically, or you can take a donation envelope from the back of the pew in front of you and place it in the donation box, which sits beside the fountain in the atrium. We support our wonderful Good Neighbor organizations through our plate offering. Each week, half of our plate offering is shared with a Good Neighbor organization recommended by the Social Justice Council. We're grateful that you've continued to practice generosity with our community through these very hard times. Our Good Neighbor this month is No More Tears, a violence and crime prevention program founded in 2002 by men incarcerated at San Quentin and concerned citizens, both seeking to remedy the rise of violent crime in their communities and reduce the recidivism rates of returning citizens. We recognize the unique perspective of former perpetrators and value their ability to bring solutions to the community where they once contributed to a problem. Offerings of any value are received with gratitude. Thank you. Thank you, Katya. Please join me in dedicating our offering. We dedicate our offering and ourselves to the mission of this congregation to create loving community, inspire spiritual growth, and encourage lives of integrity, joy, and service.
You know, every week when we're here together, I can be here together again in person. Every single week. Are y'all still appreciating that? Yes. So I have some announcements for us. First of all, as we are working along a long process to talk about the future of UUCB's Freestone Retreat property in Sonoma County, I have a yellow handout. It's in the atrium, sitting like right beside the door, with laying out what all the different events are happening over the next couple of months. And one of those is going to be for this Sunday and the next few. There will be some sharing circles, chalice circle style, just to talk about our experiences of the Freestone property. So there will be a couple of those circles after the service today in the music room. And it's just come to one of them. It's a drop-in, pick one to come to. It'll be offered 4 different Sundays and a couple of weeknights on Zoom also. The dates are all on that yellow handout. And I think do you have anything about RE recruiting, or are we like looking for teachers and stuff? You know, our kids are so fabulous. And it's so wonderful to be able to surround the children and youth here at UUCB with a supportive community to help them grow in their spiritual journey. Heaven, could you stand up for a moment? So if you are interested at all in talking about how you might be part of our religious exploration program, please come talk to Heaven after the service. We're doing a lot of work to get ready for what is going to be a great year, especially after so much disruption over the past couple. Our kids are back, they're enthusiastic. We would love to have any of you as part of that, so please come talk to Heaven about that. And your ministerial search committee would like you to know that they are in full swing. You'll find all the details about their progress and the search timeline in the first Beacon article, which comes out September 1st-ish. Your first opportunity to engage in the search will be in the congregational survey to be released September the 4th. Meanwhile, feel free to reach out to the committee. They've got an email address. I'm guessing you can find it on the website. Or look for the people with the yellow name tag ribbons on Sundays after the service. Any search committee folks in the room, can you stand, please? Go ahead and stand up so people can see you. It is a tremendous amount of work and dedication that they are bringing to the future of UUCB right now, and I hope we can do everything possible to continue to support them. And now Brian has a couple things to talk about too.
Good morning, or good afternoon, as the case may be. I want to let you know that choir rehearsals are beginning the first 2 Sundays of September, right after service, 12:30 in the fireside room. Everyone who would like to is welcome. You don't need to know how to sight read. As long as you feel like, oh, I can kind of match a tune, you're welcome to come in and join for those. Also, Thursday nights be at 7:15 in here, and that's an ongoing thing. Thursday nights at 7:15, starting with the first Thursday after Labor Day, so the 8th. And I'm hoping the song leaders can come up. Our last one to let you know about our last song, which is Sakura. It's number 177. Hopefully the words will be up on the screen because they're different from the ones in the book, but the melody is good. Can we check on those words and see if they can show up? Good, good, good. Terrific. And there's one extra phrase in here. I apologize. Fragrant as the morning sun. We don't sing those words. We sing the rest of it. Week after week, for eons, it seems like we've been supported by song leaders up here. So our singing of the hymns, thank goodness for our song leaders, and in particular, thank goodness for Kathleen Baumgartner and Don Walwich, who have been here over and over. since it's a flower Sunday.
Cherry blooms, blanketing the countryside. Clouds of glory fill the sky. Mists of beauty in the air, lovely colors floating by. Come and see, enjoy this lovely sight. Sakura, Sakura, all the world their beauty sees. Yoshinaga cherry grand, Tatsuta maple trees, Sakura, nine trees grand. Sakura, Sakura, releasing of her beauty.
Each week, as we gather, we light a common chalice. We sing and celebrate, we pray, and we think. We pray and think here in our congregations. Then we gather strength from the flame and from each other and go out from here, taking the light we have gathered with us. May it be so, and blessed be.